So picture this. You are standing on the driving range, right? You've got a bucket of balls at your feet.
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
You take a swing, completely chunk it, and the guy in the bay next to you leans over with that classic age-old piece of golf advice. He says, hey, you've got to straighten your trail arm at impact.
Right. It's like the most persistent piece of conventional wisdom in the entire game.
Exactly. I mean, we have all heard it. The idea is that you hit the ball by fully extending your trail arm right into the back of the golf ball. And while it sounds logical, it feels powerful.
It definitely feels powerful.
Yeah.
But today, we're going to look at the hard data and realize that it might actually be, well, completely wrong.
Completely wrong. Okay, let's unpack this, because our mission for this deep dive is to debunk some of these deeply ingrained myths, right?
Yeah, we really want to uncover what the elite players are actually doing when the club meets the ball.
Right. And we are focusing specifically on trail arm flexion and a couple of concepts called recentering and sidebend. Now, I know that sounds incredibly technical, but I promise you, understanding this is basically the secret sauce to a consistent swing.
It really is. But before we get into the exact angles and all the heavy biomechanics, we have to establish the stakes here.
Okay, lay it out for us.
This raises an important question, right? Why are we analyzing a single arm joint? It isn't just some cosmetic detail. You don't study the trail elbow just to make the swing look prettier in a slow-motion video.
Definitely not. So what's the actual impact? No pun intended.
Well, the trail arm is the final mechanical link in the chain before the energy generated by your body is transferred to the club shaft. So the research shows a direct, measurable relationship between how that trail arm behaves at impact and, well, pretty much everything.
Like club head speed and ball speed.
Exactly. Club head speed, ball speed, your smash factor, and just your overall impact consistency.
Real quick, when you say smash factor, just for the uninitiated, we're basically talking about the efficiency of the energy transfer from the club head to the golf ball, right?
That is the perfect definition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you swing a club at, say, 100 miles per hour, but you hit the ball with this glancing, inefficient blow,
Yeah.
your ball speed is going to be low.
Right. Your smash factor is just terrible at that point.
Exactly. The trail arm mechanics dictate the delivery of the club head. So if that delivery is flawed, your smash factor drops. You lose distance and accuracy no matter how violently you rotate your body.
Which perfectly sets up why so many of us struggle. I mean, we get the big muscles moving, we swing absolutely out of our shoes, but the impact just sounds like a thud.
And the ball goes absolutely nowhere.
Right. Meanwhile, a tour pro looks like they're swinging with zero effort and they just hit it miles.
The difference there lies entirely in the application of dynamic force. A lot of amateur golfers generate a ton of effort, but they waste all that energy before the club ever even reaches the ball.
You know, I think about it like trying to move a really heavy piece of furniture.
Okay, I like this.
Yeah, imagine you're helping a friend move this massive, solid oak dresser across a carpeted room. If you walk up to that dresser, lock your elbows completely straight and try to push it, what happens?
You're not going anywhere.
Exactly. You have absolutely no leverage. You can't generate any driving force. And honestly, you're probably going to injure your shoulders or your wrist because those joints are locked and totally vulnerable.
Right, they're bearing all the shock.
Yeah. To actually move something that heavy, your instinct is to step into it, bend your elbows, get your body weight behind your hands, right? You use that physical flexion to drive force efficiently.
That is a brilliant way to visualize leverage. I mean, when you lock a joint, you lose your power. And the golf swing relies on that exact same principle.
So the data backs this up.
Completely. The 3D motion capture data from elite players definitively proves this. At the exact millisecond of impact, the trail arm is not fully extended. Not even close.
Wait, really? It's not straight at all.
Nope. It maintains measurable, significant flexion. The extension of the arm actually happens well after the ball is gone, during the follow-through.
Oh, because the momentum of the club head is just pulling the arms outward.
Exactly. The sheer momentum pulls everything straight. But at the actual moment of impact, the arm is visibly bent.
Okay, wait. If my trail arm is bent at impact, wouldn't the club just swing right over the top of the ball?
How do you mean?
Like, I'm picturing myself trying to do this right now. If I keep my right arm bent near my chest, I feel like I'd whiff completely. The club just wouldn't reach the ground.
Yeah, you are hitting on the core of the biomechanical puzzle here. Because if your arm is flexed, the radius of your swing is effectively shorter than if your arm was locked out straight.
Right. The distance from my shoulder to the club head shrinks.
Exactly. So to get that club head all the way down to the turf while keeping that powerful bent trail arm, the body actually has to alter its distance to the ground.
It has to move closer to the ball.
Yes, the player has to create space. And this is done through two primary mechanisms, recentering and side bend.
Okay, let's take those one at a time. What exactly is recentering?
Recentering involves the movement of your overall center of mass. So in a high-level swing, before the club even reaches the top of the backswing, the player actually begins to shift their mass back toward the target line.
Before the backswing is even finished.
Yeah, exactly. It's an overlapping motion. They are subtly moving their center of gravity slightly forward and down.
And what does that actually accomplish?
Well, it does two things. First, it plants the lead foot firmly into the ground to prepare for the massive rotation coming up. And second, it lowers the body slightly to start closing that gap to the golf ball we just talked about.
Okay, I follow you. So I shift my weight forward and slightly down, that's the recentering. But if I just shift my weight and aggressively rotate my chest, my arms are still miles away from the ball.
Right, because you're just rotating on a level plane.
Yeah, exactly. So how does the body actually close the rest of the gap so the bent arm can reach?
That is where side bend comes in. Side bend, or technically it's called secondary spine tilt.
Secondary spine tilt, got it.
Yeah, it happens as your pelvis and your thorax, which is just the upper torso or chest area, rotate toward the target. While they rotate, your spine physically tilts laterally away from the target.
Meaning the trail shoulder drops significantly lower than the lead shoulder.
You've got it. That's the side bend.
But wait, if I'm aggressively bending sideways, dropping my right shoulder down, and shifting my mass around in a fraction of a second, doesn't that just throw off my balance entirely?
It sounds like it would, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I just stand here in my living room and aggressively bend my spine sideways, I'm going to fall over. How does violently tilting my spine actually help the arms deliver the club?
Well, if you stood perfectly still and just bent sideways, you absolutely would lose your balance. But we have to remember the dynamic motion of the swing.
The rotation balances it out.
Exactly. The interaction between side bend, pelvis rotation, and thorax rotation acts as this brilliantly balanced biomechanical engine.
Oh, so they're counterforces.
Yes. As your lower body rotates open, the side bend counteracts those massive rotational forces to keep your head relatively steady and your center of gravity dynamically stable.
That makes total sense. So it keeps you from flying forward.
Right. But more importantly for the arms, that side bend literally creates a physical runway. By dropping the trail shoulder and tilting the spine, you are creating a slot for the arms to drop down into during the downswing.
Oh, wow. So without the side bend, your rotating chest and hips would literally just block your arms from coming down in front of you.
Completely block them. If you rotate your hips and chest level to the ground without any side bend, your trail shoulder stays super high in the air.
And if your shoulder is high, your flexed trail arm is way too far from the golf ball.
Exactly. And your brain is incredibly smart. The proprioceptors subconsciously recognize that the club head isn't going to reach the ball from that high position.
So what does the brain do? It panics.
Yep. It fires an emergency signal to straighten the trail arm immediately to try and close the gap.
Which brings us perfectly to the amateur versus professional comparison. Because when we look at the motion capture data for these trail arm extension patterns, the differences are just night and day.
They really are. The amateur pattern is almost universally defined by that exact panic response. Excessive early trail arm extension.
Because they haven't created the space.
Right. Amateurs often fail to recenter properly, and they almost always lack the necessary side bend. Their body stays way too far away from the turf, so they just throw their arms at the ball to make contact.
And that kicks off an entire devastating chain reaction of swing faults, doesn't it?
Oh, it destroys everything. Because you aren't just straightening the arm, you are altering the entire geometry of the swing path.
Right. The club head is moving away from you.
Exactly. When you straighten the trail arm too early, you push the club head out and away from your body. This completely destroys your swing path, leading to the dreaded over-the-top motion.
Where the club comes down on an outside-in path, swiping across the ball.
And hello, massive slice.
Yeah, nobody wants that. And I imagine it ruins your low point control too, right? Like knowing exactly where the club hits the ground.
Absolutely, which totally explains all the chunk shots and the thin shots. The bottom of your swing arc is basically constantly moving.
That's so frustrating. But I also see a lot of guys like standing up straight right at impact. Is that related?
100%. As that heavy club head is thrown outward by the straightening arm, the sheer momentum of that weight actually pulls the golfer's upper body forward and up.
So they lose their posture completely.
Yeah, we call it early extension of the body. You have to stand up to make room for the club because your prematurely straightened arms have occupied the physical space your torso was supposed to use.
It is wild how one biomechanical necessity, just trying to reach the ball, creates such drastically different physical responses.
Right, the pro uses side bend and core rotation to deliver a bent, powerful arm.
And the amateur just locks the joint and stands up. But let me ask you this. We are talking about the golf swing as if it's one single uniform motion. But obviously, we use 14 different tools out on the course.
Right, very true.
So does this need for trail arm flexion and side bend change based on the club in the bag? Like, are we seeing the exact same numbers with a 45-inch driver as we do with a pitching wedge?
Well, the underlying principles remain exactly the same, but the magnitudes and setups change significantly based on the club's purpose.
Okay, so what does the data actually show there?
The analysis we're looking at includes detailed comparisons among drivers, mid-irons, and wedges, and the behavior of the body and the trail arm at impact adapts to the specific attack angles required for each club.
Walk me through those differences. Like, what does a driver swing look like compared to a wedge in this context?
Sure. With a driver, your goal is to hit slightly up on the golf ball, right? To maximize launch conditions and minimize spin.
Right, you want to sweep it off the tee.
Exactly. So to achieve that upward angle of attack, players will actually utilize significantly more side bend. The ball is teed up and positioned forward in the stance, so the trail shoulder drops much further down and back to shallow out the path.
And what about the trail arm? Is it still flexed?
It still maintains measurable flexion at impact, yes. Though I will say it may be slightly closer to extension than with a short iron, simply because the ball is physically further away.
That makes sense. And contrast that with a wedge.
With a scoring wedge, you want a steeper downward strike to generate spin and precision. So the side bend is less extreme and the recentering is more subtle.
But the arm is still bent.
Oh,
Yeah.
that trail arm remains deeply flexed. It stays bent to ensure the hands lead the club head, guaranteeing you strike the back of the ball before taking a divot for perfect low point control.
Okay, so knowing the problem is only half the battle here.
Usually is.
Right. If I'm an amateur listening to this deep dive and I suddenly realize, wow, I'm losing all my power because I'm early extending my trail arm, how do I actually fix it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because if I don't have the space, I can't just forcefully hold my arm bent, right? I'll just top the ball.
Exactly. And this is where evidence-based coaching has totally revolutionized the sport. Elite coaches aren't just telling players to hold your arm bent.
Which would be terrible advice.
Terrible advice, because it ignores the root cause. Instead, they use practical movement drills designed to develop proper recentering and side bend naturally. They focus entirely on the body's movement.
Okay, what do those drills actually look like in practice?
Well, one common method is using step drills. A coach will have a player take their normal stance, but before they swing, they step their lead foot back next to their trail foot.
Oh, so their feet are together.
Right. Then, as they swing the club back, they are forced to step the lead foot aggressively forward toward the target before the backswing even finishes.
And what does that do?
That dynamic stepping motion physically forces the body to recenter its mass and plant into the ground. It's unavoidable.
That's brilliant. Are there other drills?
Yeah, another method involves constraint training. A coach might place a physical barrier, like an alignment stick, just outside the golf ball.
So if you throw your arms at the ball, you hit the stick.
Exactly. If the player throws their trail arm out early, smack, they hit the stick. To avoid it, the brain is forced to figure out how to rotate the torso and drop the trail shoulder into a deep side bend to deliver the club from the inside.
Wow. It's basically tricking the brain into finding the right body position.
Exactly. And it's all about maintaining lag and shaft lean.
Right, lag being the angle between your lead forearm and the club shaft during the downswing.
Yep. And shaft lean is having the hands physically ahead of the club head at the exact moment of impact. You just cannot achieve true, powerful shaft lean if your trail arm is fully extended.
So proper trail arm mechanics, supported by all that space created by side bend, are really the secret to maintaining that lag and compressing the golf ball.
Precisely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it all ties into the kinematic sequence.
We hear a lot about the kinematic sequence when talking about generating this kind of effortless power. How does the flex trail arm actually fit into that broader sequence?
So the research maps out the exact sequence of peak rotational velocities in the body.
Okay.
First, the pelvis reaches its maximum rotational speed and then rapidly decelerates. That kinetic energy is transferred up the spine to the thorax, which then peaks and decelerates.
Passing the energy up the chain.
Exactly. Then the energy moves into the lead arm
Yeah.
and finally down the shaft to the club head.
So it's less like casting a fishing rod and more like, I don't know, a multi-stage rocket or a bullwhip cracking.
Oh, the bullwhip is the perfect analogy. Think about it. When you crack a whip, you move the thick, heavy handle relatively slowly, right?
Yeah, just a flick of the wrist.
But as that wave of energy moves down the tapering leather, it multiplies in speed until the tiny tip actually breaks the sound barrier.
Wow, right.
The human body does the exact same thing. Energy multiplies as it moves from the large, slow muscles of the pelvis to the small, fast components of the club head. The trail arm's job is to fold and unfold in perfect harmony with this wave of energy.
And if you forcefully straighten the arm out of turn.
It's like putting a rigid kink in the whip. You break the kinematic chain, bleeding all that rotational energy before the club ever reaches the ball.
That makes so much sense. It is wild to think about the sheer amount of data dictating the modern swing, though. Like how granular it has become.
It's incredible.
Right. How do we even know all these exact angular velocities and joint flexion measurements? Because here's where it gets really interesting. A few decades ago, coaching was literally just a guy watching you swing on a grass range and saying, looks a little fast at the top.
Yeah, completely subjective.
Right. Then we got 2D video, which was better, but still incredibly deceiving. But now we are talking about full 3D motion capture and pressure plates.
3D motion capture is the ultimate game changer here. Because in 2D video, a trail arm might look perfectly straight at impact simply because of the camera angle.
Oh, so it's an optical illusion.
Exactly. But 3D sensors track the exact degrees of joint flexion in true three-dimensional space. That is how the scientific community conclusively proved the presence of measurable flexion at impact.
They couldn't hide from the sensors.
Nope. But the data goes even deeper than just analyzing body positions in space. We are now analyzing invisible force production through force plates.
Yeah, I've seen these. They are essentially high-tech scales built into the turf that the golfer stands on, right?
Yeah, basically.
And they measure exactly how the feet are interacting with the ground. But how does pushing down into the ground create space for my arms? That feels disconnected.
It all comes down to ground reaction forces, or GRF. It's essentially Newton's third law, right?
Right.
For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction.
Right.
So the force plate studies show that how a player pushes into the ground dictates how their pelvis and thorax actually move. There are three main forces we look at: vertical, horizontal, and torsional.
Okay, break that down for me. How does the ground make my hips turn?
Let's think about the lead foot in the downswing. When a pro golfer steps into that lead foot during recentering, they don't just gently put their weight on it.
They're driving into it.
Aggressively pushing down and forward into the turf. And the ground pushes back with equal force, sending all that energy right up the leg.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, this vertical and backward thrust physically pushes the lead hip up and back, completely out of the way. This violently rotates the pelvis open, which then pulls the torso around, which naturally drops the trail shoulder into side bend.
Wow. So the rotation of the hips and the tilting of the spine isn't something you just twist your core muscles to do?
Not at all.
You are literally using the ground as a springboard. So if you don't push off the ground correctly, your pelvis doesn't clear, you don't create side bend, and your arms have absolutely no space.
Precisely. It is an entirely different paradigm of performance analysis now. Elite coaches are looking at dashboards of force plate numbers just to determine why a player's trail arm is straightening a millisecond too early.
They aren't even looking at the elbow.
No, they are looking at how the left foot pushes into the ground. We are managing this massive, complex system of physics, biomechanics, and ground reaction forces.
Which is exactly why the conventional advice of keep your arm straight is so remarkably outdated.
It really is.
It's an instruction based on an optical illusion, totally ignoring the physics of how human beings actually generate and transfer power.
Right. It treats the symptom rather than the disease. The arms are simply reacting to the physical environment the body creates.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring all this dense, high-level data down to the turf for you, the listener. What are the big takeaways from this deep dive into the modern golf swing?
Well, first and foremost, you have to discard the misconception of the straight trail arm at impact. It does not happen in elite golf, and striving for it will only cause swing faults, casting, and early extension.
Yep. Second, understand that measurable flexion at impact equals power, consistency, and control over the club head. It is the real secret to maintaining lag and delivering the club with maximum efficiency.
And third, you cannot just force your arm to bend. You have to create the physical space for it.
Right, and that requires shifting your mass, recentering, and creating that side bend so your arms have a clear, unobstructed runway to the ball.
The biomechanics, the 3D data, and the force plate studies all point to the exact same undeniable conclusion. If you want better arm delivery, you need better body movement.
Which leaves us with a pretty wild thought to chew on. Think about all the times you have stood on a driving range and obsessed over your grip, your wrists, or your elbows just to fix a slice or a chunk.
We've all spent hours doing it.
Right. But what if the secret to fixing your arm swing has absolutely nothing to do with your arms and entirely to do with how your feet push against the ground to move your spine?
It changes everything.
It really does. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our channel and share it with fellow golfers, coaches, and golf professionals. If there's a topic you would like us to research, analyze, and discuss in a future episode, feel free to send us an email. Our team will evaluate your question, conduct in-depth research, and may create a dedicated podcast episode focused entirely on your topic. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to exploring the future of golf performance, coaching, biomechanics, kinematics, ground reaction forces, and technology together.